Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the BGF podcast. I am your host, Gianluca, alongside of
Brandon.
And today we decided to do something a little bit differently for you guys. Bring you
The redraft content.
the redraft content because, football is only 73 days away, or 71 by the time I upload this video. We'll see.
That actually doesn't sound that bad, 71.
It's like 2 months and a bit, right? But, figure... Yeah, it's preseason, so it's really maybe 90, whatever.
Oh, that's the preseason?
Yeah, it's
okay.
preseason.
Yeah,
It's anyways. But before we get into that, we started doing some underdog stuff, especially Brandon. He's been big on that, so we decided why not bring you some sleepers, some people that we think are going a little bit too low. Give you guys some reasoning behind it, and why not get us started off, Brandon? Let us know.
Yeah, so these are players that I like really taking in underdog drafts. I think their ADP is a bit low. So first off, I'm going to start with a guy who has been rising up boards lately. He started off in the offseason pretty low, but I feel like right now he's the market's adjusting to Jaylen Waddle.
Yeah.
So my reasoning for Jaylen Waddle being one of the guys I love taking right now is he's in an elite passing offense. We saw last year Tua Tagovailoa led the league in passing yards. They're gonna sling the ball downfield. And it's a really concentrated target share with him and Tyreek. These are the two, they didn't really bring in anyone. They brought in Odell, who, it's the corpse of Odell. He's not going to do much, really. I don't really expect much from him. So it's going to be a lot of Waddle and Tyreek yet again. Plus, that new contract is really solidified for me that they believe in him. $28 million a year for Jaylen Waddle, which I saw it at first. I'm like, that's a lot of money. That's pretty crazy, but they clearly believe in him and Tyreek Hill, so I'm expecting a bounce back here from him. He didn't miss last year. He did miss 3 games, and they still got over 1,000 yards, which it was his second highest receiving yards in the season, and it was a down year for him. So I'm expecting 1,200 to 1,300 from him, and I like taking him in the late second, early third when you see guys like Devontae Adams, Chris Olave going. I prefer Jaylen Waddle over Olave a lot more when a guy like Olave's got Derek Carr throwing him the ball. And in a best ball format like underdog, you're going to see a lot of big spike weeks from a guy like Waddle, and that's big in a best ball format.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. Very good points. Then keeping it up on the wide receiver side of things, I got one who's slipping a little too much for me. Michael Pittman Jr. from the Indianapolis Colts. We've failed to remember how good he's been with Anthony Richardson under helm, commanding at least 11 targets a week. That's a minimum 10 points guaranteed from Michael Pittman Jr. Even if he catches half of these balls, say he gets 5 for 50, that's 10 points consistently a week for Michael Pittman. Plus, he's a huge guy in the red zone. Touchdown threat there. Finished the season off as wide receiver 13, and now he is currently being drafted as wide receiver 24. That's just disrespectful. I mean, I get it. There's uncertainty with that offense, but Michael Pittman is the alpha in that room. It doesn't matter. I don't care what anyone says about Josh Downs. I like him. But Pittman's the guy. Pittman is the one who will command targets. We saw Anthony Richardson lean on him, especially before he went down with injury. He was the number 1 target, so expect that to continue. Michael Pittman to be a fantasy threat. He's currently going the 4th round. That's just too low for me. I'm taking this guy middle of the 2nd round if I see him on the board.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like Michael Pittman, he's not the sexy name. A bit older, 26. Well, he's not old, but in terms of those young receivers, yeah. 26. I just feel like, plus he plays in Indianapolis, so he's not like a big name, so people are always not going to be picking him that high, but I feel like you saw it with that early sample size with Richardson. That's a guy I like picking as well. Next up, a guy who we went back and forth on last year, a guy that I wasn't a big fan of, but I've seen the light.
You see, he's
converted. Yeah, and I feel like you see guys going ahead of him that should not be, guys like Devontae Smith and Stephon Diggs, guys like that. And it's George Pickens. He's right now the wide receiver 28 on underdog. And we saw last year 1,100 yards with terrible QB play. It was all over the place. We saw Kenny Pickett at one point. And then it was just the whole different, all kinds of different quarterbacks. And he was still able to thrive. Now that Deontay Johnson has gone to Carolina, that frees up about 7 to 10 targets a game. And they didn't really bring in anyone besides Roman Wilson in the draft, who I don't know how he's going to be rookie year. He might have a decent rookie year, but even at that, he's definitely not taking the amount of targets that Deontay Johnson did have. And he is a 3rd-year wide receiver, George Pickens. So that's a type of profile that you want to bet on. And with the way he's been getting better and better each year, I'd imagine it's going to be another big year for George Pickens. I could see 13, maybe even crack 1,400 yards. He could, if you tell me George Pickens is a top 2-round fantasy player getting picked in that range next year, I wouldn't be surprised. And with Russell Wilson being his quarterback to start the year, I don't know if it'll be him the whole year or if Fields is going to take over at one point, but he is known for feeding his number one receivers. We saw it with Cortland Sutton last year and the year before that in Denver. Saw it with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett when he was in Seattle. So he's always going to feed his guys. And like I said earlier with Waddle, another guy who is known for spike weeks in George Pickens. So in best ball formats, he will be very good. And you're going to have big weeks. And he can win you weeks. So even if it's not a best ball format, he's the type of guy who can win you weeks. So I really like George Pickens this year. And it's not something I expected to be saying last year, but I was proved wrong by George Pickens. He did have a really good year last year. And I'm expecting it to be even better this year. So he's my second guy.
Yeah, just to touch up on that George Pickens things, we're forgetting that Russell Wilson has a deep ball arm. Like he can throw the ball downfield, and that's primarily what George Pickens does. He's the street guy. He's the guy that just runs down the field. And if he connects with Russell Wilson, it can be a very dangerous year for George Pickens. Moving on here to my second wide receiver, I got Jordan Addison. He is currently the wide receiver 39 on Underdog. That is criminal. This guy's going the 7th, 8th round. That's ridiculous. I mean, look, I get it. You're sitting behind the best wide receiver in the NFL. It sucks. But last year when Jefferson went down, Addison proved he can be the guy to create space, break coverages, and get in the open field. He is QB proof. I don't care what anyone says. He played the majority of his season with Josh Dobbs and Nick Mullins at the helm, which is not good. With Kirk Cousins, he was very consistent, getting at least 6 to 8 targets a week. Now, Nick Mullins and Josh Dobbs, he still commanded targets. He still got touchdowns. This guy is going to be a beast. Add Jefferson into the mix. Jefferson is the guy getting double teamed. Addison will have one-on-one coverage majority of the season. You get Addison one-on-one. He has proven last year that he can break it. It's his second year in the league. He's only going to get better. Last year finished as the wide receiver 23 with 10 touchdowns in his rookie season. Imagine what he's going to do now one-on-one. Just disrespectful for me. I would take Addison somewhere in the 4th, 5th round. I would not be scared to draft this man. He is going way too low. Take him in your leagues. He will win you weeks.
Yeah, as a Niners fan, the game that we went to,
yeah,
I saw it in the flesh. We saw it, how good he could be even without Justin Jefferson. So, yeah, I like that pick with Addison. He's a guy who, in that range, I have been taking shots on. So now number 3, a guy who hasn't been talked about a lot this offseason and is honestly coming off a down year, and even the year before that in Houston. It's Brandin Cooks, who's being drafted as the wide receiver 59 on Underdog right now. So he's being drafted in the trenches. super, super low. He's a guy that he's going to be in a top 3 passing offense in Dallas. Dak Prescott's going to sling the rock. And, it is an empty receiving room besides CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb's not going to catch every single ball. So you'd expect Brandin Cooks, who has been throughout his whole career, he's been a consistent wide receiver. You could say the last 2 years he hasn't been as good, but I don't hate, at the range he's getting drafted, I don't hate taking a shot on him and potentially having a good season there. And like I said, he has been a really consistent player his whole career, so I don't hate going for a guy like him. And in that range, you got guys like Romeo Doubs, who's the wide receiver 53, JSN, wide receiver 47, Jamison Williams at wide receiver 48, and Mike Williams at wide receiver 56. These are guys all getting drafted ahead of him. And I like Brandin Cooks overall. Guys, look at a guy like Mike Williams, who every year has been injured for a majority of the season. So, and even now in New York, I don't think he's in a really great spot there. Jamison Williams, yet to prove himself. Romeo Doubs. I don't like anyone in that Green Bay wide receiver room, to be honest.
No, me neither. They're horrible.
Yeah, and then JSN, another guy who last year didn't really prove himself too much. So I think Brandin Cooks, a guy we've seen have success in the NFL, in a top 3 passing offense. I really like him this year, and he's my number 3.
No, can't argue that. It's a very good pickup there. My number 3, I'm going to transfer it to the running back room. I'm going to have Mr. James Cook. I'm just going to get his final.
First running back.
First running back off the board. He's currently the running back 13, and that is just a little bit too low for me. I mean, you put him in that offense with Buffalo, it's a good offense. It doesn't matter what anyone says. Josh Allen slings the rock absolutely anywhere, so he's going to sling the rock. However, you get rid of Stephon Diggs. You get rid of Gabe Davis. Who do you have to throw the ball to? You have absolutely nobody. Last season, Buffalo was struggling. What did they do? They transferred OC. They changed OC. They brought in the new guy.
Joe Brady.
He comes in. What does he do? He runs the ball a lot. James Cook is the running back one. He is coming into his third season in the NFL. I expect his production to skyrocket this year. I will not be surprised if he eclipses 1,100 yards, which is what he had last year, commanding maybe 8 to 9 touchdowns this season. James Cook is going to be a running back one come next season, believe me. Especially in that offense with Josh Allen, who is able to run the ball himself. He is able to disguise himself as a running back to get offenses off of James Cook to create open space. He will get open. He will get the rock. Plus, he's a very underrated pass-catching back. A lot of people don't realize that about him, but last season, new OC comes in. He was commanding 3 to 5 targets a week on the back. That's really, really good. I expect that role to skyrocket considering they don't have anyone else in the receiving core. You got Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir. I mean, those aren't really big names, so expect everyone's role to just increase in this offense, and James Cook is going to be number one to that for me, and I expect him to go next season as the running back, anywhere from the running back 5 to 8 range. I'm expecting him to have a huge season in Buffalo.
Yeah, I agree with that. We saw a second half of the year when Joe Brady came in, they were running the ball all kinds. Stephon Diggs wasn't even really a factor at that point. And now with the way their team's trending, with all the receivers being gone and Gabe Davis and Diggs, not really any proven guys in that wide receiver room, I expect them to be run heavy yet again this year. And we all know James Cook, even if they are passing the ball, he's a threat in the passing game. So I like James Cook, and I wouldn't be surprised if he does jump up boards as well next year. And I feel like he's going way too low.
Yeah.
So for me now, number 4, I got Josh Palmer, who's being drafted as a wide receiver 54 on Underdog. So in that similar range to Brandin Cooks. I really like him this year. I feel like with Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler leaving, that frees up 224 targets. That's a huge amount. They're obviously not going to pass the ball as much as they did in past seasons because they are getting Jim Harbaugh, and we know he's known for running the football. But even the running back room, like Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, basically the Baltimore.
The Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah. Obviously, Greg Roman's the OC there now, so it's not a surprise that those guys came in. But they have to pass the ball. Like, they're not going to run the ball every single snap.
No.
Ladd McConkey comes in. People are very high on him. I just don't know. Like, Ladd McConkey's not going to come in and out. He could have a Puka Nacua-esque type of year, but I don't really see it. Mm-hmm. Quentin Johnston, forget that. It took 1 year and Quentin Johnston's done.
But he says he's better.
Yeah, I don't believe
he says
they're
he's
just
improved.
They're just saying that shit. I don't believe in that. And even Josh Palmer, we saw last year when they did have injuries in that receiving room when Mike Williams went down. He was the guy that was relied on as the wide receiver too. It was never Quentin Johnston, and he's always been sneaky solid his whole career, Josh Palmer. And he is only 24, which he feels like a guy who's been around forever and feels like a 26, 27-year-old guy. But he is only 24, still young, and there's still progression to be had in his game. And I really like Josh Palmer late, especially with the guys, like I said earlier, with Mike Williams, guys like that going ahead of him. I don't mind taking a shot on Josh Palmer late in the drafts, and he's a guy I like here as wide receiver 54.
Yeah, don't be scared of that offense. I mean, you got one of the better young quarterbacks in the league in Justin Herbert. Arguably best thrower, most whatever. He's able to throw the ball, so he will throw the ball. Jim Harbaugh, yes, he does love to run the football, but he is also not an idiot. He's one of the most brilliant head coaches in the leagues, I believe. Honestly, I really like the guy, but he will utilize Justin Herbert. Don't be scared.
Yeah, that is another thing that I didn't mention. It is Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
People are saying they're only gonna run the ball. They're definitely not gonna be using guys like Gus Edwards and all that when they have Justin Herbert as a quarterback. They will use them, but Justin Herbert will be utilized. He's one of the best quarterbacks, one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah. Anyways, another guy I have on my list. We're moving on here. I got a quarterback coming in, QB 13, currently an underdog, Mr. Brock Purdy.
I love it.
Guys, I don't understand this. I mean, let's just read the list, right? You got Josh Allen, QB 1, fine. Hurts 2, fine. Lamar 3, fine, whatever. Mahomes 4, okay. But here's where it gets tricky. Anthony Richardson, I get the hype. I see it, but he hasn't really proven anything. He's been injured.
Those first 3 weeks were crazy.
Those first 3 weeks were really fun. Don't get me wrong. I would love taking a shot on Richardson, but I would stick with Purdy here. CJ Stroud, okay, you can make an argument there, fine, but I would still stick with Purdy. You saw what he can do last season. Kyler Murray, injury concern, troubling here and there. I'd take Brock Purdy. Joe Burrow, QB 8. I mean, same thing with Burrow here. Look, hear me out. Burrow does have an injury concern. He has a little bit of an injury history going on. It's unfortunate for the guy. I don't know how he will look at the beginning of the season, but I do believe Joe Burrow will be able to turn it around, just not right away. So I would take Purdy over Burrow.
I love it.
Prescott, you can make an argument. Him too, he's going pretty low. He's probably one of the better quarterbacks in the league, especially fantasy-wise. He slings the rock a lot. So Prescott, Purdy, they're probably equal. I would lean Purdy here just because I like the offense more in San Fran, but I wouldn't argue if you take Prescott over Purdy. That's fine. Jordan Love, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams. Seriously, do I like, what the hell are you guys doing? Just stop disrespecting the man. Last season he finished as QB 6, and now he's going QB 13. What changed? His offense is the exact same. You have Christian McCaffrey there. You have Debo. You have Kittle. You have Brandon Ayuk. The offense is the same. Why are we not taking this guy? What changed? Just because he's a 7th round last pick in the draft type of guy, it doesn't matter. He produces. He hits you 18 points a week minimum. Why aren't you taking him?
And even that, he was the QB 6 last year. He didn't play week 18, and
That's what I was about to say.
majority of the games, second half.
He wasn't playing.
Yeah, they weren't even playing because the score was so out of reach, and it was literally the most explosive offense in the. He's quarterbacking the most explosive offense in the NFL, and he's being drafted so low.
Like, don't get me wrong. When J.J. McCarthy plays, he will be better than Brock Purdy. But until then, we'll say Brock Purdy is better than him for now. But QB 6, I don't understand what people are scared of. You're taking a shot over rookie Caleb Williams, who has not looked good in training camp. Jaden Daniels doesn't have much in Washington. And, I mean, Jordan Love, who had a good 9 games against shit teams. Like, what?
Yeah, like, obviously we don't know what's going to happen with the Brandon Ayuk situation. But even with that, like, I don't know, I'd still expect.
I'm expecting him to stay. Honestly, him to play at least 1 year under the tag. If you sign him a second year under the tag, fine, I get it. He might sit out.
This year's not even a year under the tag. He's still on the contract.
He's still on his 5th year, technically.
Yeah. This is the 5th year, and then they could tag him. So he's still got 2 years under team control, technically.
Okay, so that's, why are we stressing?
Because he wants $30 million a year.
I mean, only Jefferson can get 35, but that's okay.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with Ayuk. I really hope he does stay, but even though Pearsall's being added to the mix, like, he's getting more weapons still. So
how do you feel about Pearsall?
I really like Ricky Pearsall.
I know you weren't big on him draft night.
Yeah, no, because the team needs a lot more needs, but as a player and in our offense, he's such a great route runner. He's pretty explosive, and he is an older prospect, so he should be polished and should be NFL ready. And for Kyle Shanahan to take a wide receiver first round like Pearsall, you must love that guy. So.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know what he's gonna do year 1, because if Ayuk's there, Debo, it might be like year 1. I'm not sure what the production's gonna be like, but long term, I really like Pearsall anyway.
Yeah.
And my 5th guy, final guy, I got Cooper Kupp, wide receiver 23 right now on Underdog. Like I said earlier, with Jaylen Waddle, a concentrated pass target share, with him and Puka Nacua. He did have a down year last year, but I think it's really because of the nagging muscle injuries he did have. I feel like that concern is going to be behind him this year. He is going into his age 31 season, where we do see wide receivers fall off, but Cooper Kupp was a late bloomer.
Yeah.
He was a guy that blew up kind of later on in his career, so I don't think he's going to... We saw, like, Devontae Adams still being drafted super high. He's 31, 32? So he's in the situation. Why is Devontae Adams being drafted that high? With Gardner Minshew going to be a starting quarterback. That's what I don't really get. You see guys like Neighbors, a wide receiver 19 ahead of him, Devontae Smith ahead of him, Debo, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs. Like, how could Stephon Diggs be getting drafted ahead of him?
How do you feel about Stephon Diggs this year?
Yeah, no, I'm not in on Stephon Diggs. Because I see like a lot of people aren't in on Stephon Diggs as well. Like, I see him drop at a certain price because of how, especially an underdog with how scarce wide receivers are. If it gets to a point where I have to take him, I don't mind taking him, but at his ADP, I really don't like him.
Yeah.
And with Cooper Kupp, he's still an elite football player. He's still a really good separator, and I just love him as a bounce back candidate this year. And Cooper Kupp in the 4th round, it's crazy. Like, without an injury, like last year he was getting drafted at that range because he was going on the pup. You're getting him Cooper Kupp from week 1 in the 4th round. I love it. Honestly, Cooper Kupp's one of my favorite guys this year. He's a guy I've been drafting a lot. So, yeah.
No, I can't hate that. I mean, Matthew Stafford loves the guy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just remember the season he had that year in 2021. 1,947 receiving yards with 16 touchdowns. That's just That's insane. We haven't seen a season like that until maybe Jefferson the year before, but those are insane numbers. You don't see that often, and when a guy can do it, no matter how old he is, it's just you got to take a chance on that. That production is that's wide receiver one numbers there, and if he can get anywhere close to that this season, which I don't think he will hit it again, but I do think he can eclipse 1,500 yards and maybe 10 plus touchdowns. Why not take a chance on him in the fourth round? Like it's just dumb to not take him there.
Especially like with the guys I mentioned going ahead of him.
Yeah,
what is Devontae Smith?
I don't know.
With all the options they got in that offense now, with Saquon coming in there, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, they got so many guys. And you get a team like L.A. where it's really just Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. These are the guys that are going to get the ball.
The thing with Devontae Smith, right, and he hasn't had a season where he's eclipsed 1,200 yards. He's been averaging about 1,000 yards a season, which is not bad.
I like really Devontae Smith as a talent. Like I really like him. Me too. It's just in that situation.
That situation is not like he won't dominate that offense because Jalen Hurts doesn't throw the ball 40 to 50 times a week. Mm-hmm. He runs, and his number one is A.J. Brown. So there's just a limit to what Devontae Smith can do, and it's just unfortunate. But I mean, he's there, right? And then Stephon Diggs, another guy that. I mean, here, Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, Stephon Diggs.
Cancer in the locker room. Who won that trade? Vikings or Bills?
I don't think.
I don't think it's close anymore.
I need to answer that question.
I don't think it's close anymore. I mean, I remember people still having a debate 2 seasons ago, but then Jefferson did that just insanity and put that debate to bed. But yeah, he's going to Houston. Obviously, he's a weapon. Turning 31 this year, his 10th year in the league. We know what we have in Stephon Diggs, an elite route runner. He's got a great catching radius. It's just you got too many weapons in that offense for me, and it's like why are we taking Stephon Diggs so high?
A guy who I actually didn't mention in this list who I was considering putting in is Nico Collins. He's a guy in the second round I really like. Another guy who got a new contract, so the team's committed to him.
Yeah. He
had a big year. We saw it to end the season and in the playoffs how important he was.
You want me in my fantasy league?
Him and Tank Dell are the two guys I like taking in Houston's offense. I feel like their prices are pretty, like... I think those guys, their ADPs are pretty fair. So, yeah, that's... Anyway, on Diggs and those guys that we don't like, we're going to make a separate video probably next week on...
it's going too
guys,
high.
Yeah, guys that we don't like that are going too high. So, first video back. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. And, yeah, leave us some comments what you liked, disliked from... our picks here, and see you guys in the next video.